Hey guys, it's July the 14th, 2025, and I hope everybody's been having a wonderful day so far today. It is another hot day here in South Carolina. I just had to go to the dentist just a few minutes ago. We were just getting back home. It's about 6 o'clock right now. I had to go and they made an impression of my partial, so they actually made me put my bottom partial in, because my tooth that's being extracted is broken in half. So like, you know, the bottom part of the tooth is still in the gum. It's like broken off right at the gum line. But anyway, they went ahead and made me put the bottom partial in, and then they took that goop, whatever it is, like that pink, like I guess, I don't know, some kind of semen or something, and they mixed that up, and then they put it in that big mouth tray and put it down in the bottom with my partial in my mouth. So they're going to be adding another tooth to my partial, and then they've got to come up with a way to clip it to this side, because my partials they were like clipping in. They actually went and took the drill and like drilled out little indentations in the back of my teeth so that these little clips can fit down inside right at the back of the tooth, and it kind of clamps in right there. But since this tooth over here on this side is gone now, they're going to have to come up with another clamp on the tooth that's in front of that tooth now. So they got to do a lot of reworking with my partials. The top partials are fine. It's just the bottom ones, but I can't. There's no point in wearing my top partials if I don't have my bottom partials in, because it's not going to do anything. There's nothing underneath them for me to chew on. It would just be like kind of like pushing down on my gum. But anyway, they said it's probably going to be about 2 weeks or so before I get back the new partials with the addition on them. And, I'm probably going to have to wait a little bit until that heals up all the way before I can start wearing them again. But I'm really excited that I'm going to be able to go back to chewing food again. Like I was talking about the other day, and I think it was like Friday's video, I've lost almost 20 pounds since all this happened, because, I just can't really eat much right now. I didn't eat much before, but it has really restricted what I eat. I've been eating a lot of fruit for the past couple of years. It's one of those things that, I'll have like an afternoon snack, or, maybe after my dinner, I'll have some fruit or something like that. I haven't really been able to eat any fruit. If I do, I have to like put it in the blender. And a lot of times I'll take my fruit and I'll freeze it and throw it in the blender with some protein powder and make like a protein shake, and that way I'm getting my fiber from the fruit and all that stuff as well. But anyway, like I said, I'm just super excited to get these partials back so I can finally get back to eating somewhat normal. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys. And another thing too, right before I came out here to film, I was on my front porch watering my plants really quick, and I took a quick little video of those little baby birds. They have grown a lot in the past just couple of days, maybe in the past week since the last time I showed you guys. I mean, they look like little birds. Before, they were just these little teeny tiny little things. They just had little fur, like fuzz on them. But now they actually have feathers. Their beaks are really starting to develop. Their eyes are opening up. Man, they grow fast. But I took a little clip. I'm going to throw it in on the end of today's video so you guys can see how big they've gotten. It won't be long until they're flying. Maybe another 2 weeks or something, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how long it takes, for birds to get to where they're actually flying or whatnot. But I would imagine it's not going to be too long. One of the birds was actually like climbed up on the edge of the nest. I hope that it doesn't try to jump out, because if so, it's a really far fall down from the top of that nest down to the ground, because that front porch is already really high up off the ground as is. But anyway, now that I've wasted 4 minutes talking about that stuff, I just wanted to keep you guys updated, what was going on. Like I said, I'm just really looking forward to getting these partials back, and I'm ready to get Wednesday over and done with so I can get my tooth pulled. My mom was supposed to take me, and then I just spoke with her just a little bit ago, and she's really sick. My parents were on a trip in Alaska for 2 weeks. They just got back the other day, and while they were gone, my dad ended up getting really sick. they came back and he got tested for everything. Came back negative for, everything they tested him for. But he was very, very ill. And now my mom has gotten sick. And I told her, I don't think that's a very good idea for me to go with you on Wednesday, because the last thing I want to do is get sick on top of having a tooth extraction. So probably going to end up having my wife take me that day now. Either her or my mother-in-law probably going to end up taking me, unless my mom miraculously gets better in the next day, which I highly doubt. So I told her to keep me posted, and I would talk with her tomorrow afternoon and see how she's feeling. And if she's not feeling well, I'm not riding with her. My wife will just take the day off of work. So like I said, I'll still be filming that day and posting up a video just like normal. So anyway, what I wanted to talk about today is I really just wanted to kind of tell a story. It's one of those stories that has to do with AUD. It's kind of one of those cautionary tales, and it's also a tale of why it's so great to be sober now and not have to deal with these types of things anymore, because stuff like this used to happen to me all the time. This is one of probably 1,000 stories that I have of instances where I was intoxicated and it caused problems, and this one was no less of a problem than the rest of them. As a matter of fact, this one ended up being a pretty big problem for me, and I'm gonna go ahead and get into it right now. So like I said, I wanted to tell a story today, and this story goes back, probably somewhere around 2007, 2008, around that area. My daughter was really, really young at the time. Let me think. She was maybe 3 or 4 years old. So yeah, it was probably about 2008 when this happened. Around 2007, 2008, it had to be around that time. We were going on a cruise with my work, and during this period of time, I worked for a franchise, restaurant franchise, a really big restaurant franchise at that. And the franchise that I worked for, they owned a pretty substantial amount of restaurants. They were actually really good about taking care of their employees. They took us on a lot of trips. We did a lot of stuff together. They really did make sure that they tried to build teams. That company that I worked for, they're really good at doing that. And they would take us all kinds of places, take us up to the mountains, and we'd go skiing together or go on a cruise together, or we'd just go up and spend a week in the mountains together, doing team building exercises and stuff like that. I mean, they were really good at taking us out and, like I said, trying to build teams, trying to get us stronger with each other so that, we learned to work together. And, I really appreciated that. And this cruise was, it was more or less an opportunity for us all to just get to know each other a little bit more. And, we were really celebrating a good year as well. We had ended up, in the positive for that year. All the numbers were really good, and they decided to take all the general managers on a cruise. So we got to take one person along with us. So of course I took my wife with me, and it was a week-long cruise to the Bahamas. We had to drive down to, I think it was Cocoa Beach, Florida. I think that's what it was, but it was a pretty long drive to get down to the place where, where the ship was docked at. Excuse me. And we drove the whole day down there. Got to a restaurant that night, and everybody was kind of hanging out drinking at the restaurant the night before that we went to get on the cruise. And my boss, my direct boss, and the president of the company, the vice president of the company, like all the bigwigs of the company were at this restaurant that night. And we, like I said, we drove all the way down there one day. We got there maybe like 7 or 8 o'clock that night, and we met up with all these people at this restaurant. I can't remember what the name of the restaurant was, but the first night that we get there, kind of already like laid out what this trip was going to be like. Because day one, first night, we hadn't even gotten on the cruise ship yet. We all met up at this restaurant and got tanked the night before. all the people, well, not, I won't say everybody, but for the most part, 98% of the people in the company drank, and we drank heavy. Everybody in the company were professional drinkers. I'm not kidding. We all had AUD for the most part. I can remember being over at my boss's house for meetings, and every time that we would get done with a meeting, as soon as the meeting was over, it was time we would drink. And my old boss used to live on a lake. He had a really old, like 200-year-old house on this lake, beautiful home. And, as soon as we got finished, he'd say, you guys want to get out and ride around the boat for a little bit and have some beers? And, of course we wanted to. So, we'd go out and drink, ride around on the boat and get just hammered at my boss's house. And I remember multiple times we'd be in the middle of, drinking after our meeting was over. We're all sitting around at the table in his house, and his wife would come home and start chewing him out. She'd be like, are you seriously drinking again tonight? I told you not to drink. And he'd have to come in there and go, okay, guys, party's over. Everybody needs to go ahead and go home. It's time to go ahead and end this. And, he was getting in trouble. I remember that a lot of times, his wife getting angry at him. And I had actually become really good friends with this boss as well. He had told me when I left the company that he considered me like a son. I went to his daughter's wedding. We used to go hang out with him and his wife and have dinner with them all the time. My wife and his wife, we would, all four of us would go out. We had become very close with them. And like I said, he drank a lot. He was a big beer drinker. He didn't really drink liquor that much. And I'm kind of getting off course here with my story, but I just kind of wanted to let you guys know, like, how much everybody drank in this company. It was a big drinking culture. Sorry, I did yard work today, and I breathed in a bunch of dust while I was out there working in the yard. My lungs are all dried out right now, but like I said, the night before we even get on the ship, we went to a restaurant and got wasted drunk. And the next morning, I woke up, started drinking first thing that morning. And of course, I'm going to drink. We're getting on a cruise. Why would I not wake up in the morning and drink? We're on vacation, So I wake up that morning, start drinking. We get on the cruise ship, and we head out. First day, we're just, riding, out to the Bahamas. I think it only took like a day or maybe 2 days before we got there. I don't remember how long, but it wasn't a very long trip. And like I said, I don't remember, but the first day or two, it was pretty much, no big deal. We were just drinking, having a good time, eating some food and stuff like that. But when we finally arrived to the Bahamas, the first night that we were there, they told us, we all have to go out and hang out together at the Senor Frog's place. I think it was in Nassau, and it was like right on the dock, basically, where the ship's dock at. So we've been told we've got to all meet up together. We're all going to party together. This is like one of those team building things that we're supposed to be doing. And, my wife already wasn't very excited about going to it because at this point I was already, pretty drunk, leading up to us going to go do this. And she was already getting frustrated at the fact that I've been drinking all day already. And, so she was already irritated. So she's already irritated that I've been drinking all day. And I remember that day as well because I woke up that morning and, first thing when I woke up, I splashed a little bit of water on my face. I remember this morning like it was yesterday. I got up, splashing water on my face. I felt horrible. I felt like a trash can. My wife was still asleep in the bed. And I got up and went to one of the closest bar that was near our room. And I ordered 2 Bloody Marys. Went ahead and got them and went back to the room. And I did that on purpose. I do remember this as well. I bought 2 Bloody Marys. with the idea, and I knew how this was going to turn out. I bought 2 Bloody Marys because I was going to offer one to my wife and ask her if she wanted one, because she was hungover as well. We had both gotten drunk the night before, and I knew that she was going to say no. My wife has never drank the next morning after, we went out or something. She's never done that. My wife has never been a big drinker to begin with, and it was always me really pushing her to do it. And when I say if she got drunk, she had like 2 drinks. It didn't take much for her. And if she was to have anything to drink today, if she had 1 glass of wine, she would be drunk, because she's never drank like that. But back to my point, I bought this 2 Bloody Marys because I knew that when I brought them back to the room, she's going to say, no, I don't want it. And then I could just go, well, I'm going to drink the other one. I already paid for it, so why would I pour it out? And this is one of those cruises, too, where the drinks were not included. We had to pay for all of our drinks. I think that they gave us like some tickets. We get like 6 beers a day or something like that, or like 6 drinks a day that were included, but anything else was not. And we had to pay for it. So that morning when I bought those 2 Bloody Marys, that was on our tab. And the point of paying for the drinks is actually going to tie into the story at the end as well, because that has to do with my my selfishness and my AUD as well. But like I said, I got up that morning, went and got those 2 Bloody Marys. I brought them back. Of course, my wife said, I don't want one. So I drank both of them. And spent the rest of the day, drinking the whole entire day. And later on in the day, we were supposed to start getting ready so that we could go and go hang out with the rest of the company. Because like I said, it was required. We all had to go and hang out together at the Senor Frog's place. It was like, you had to be there. It was a requirement. So I don't remember what time that we had to be there, but it was, 7 o'clock or something like that. So my wife and I went back to our room to start getting ready to go to that Senor Frog's. And of course, we wanted to get dressed up and all that kind of stuff to go out and hang out with these guys. So, we go back to the room, take showers, start getting dressed. And before we left to go down to meet everyone at that, because we were supposed to go down and meet at there's like a big meeting room that right before you walk off the ship, there's like a big area right there. I guess like an atrium or something. Excuse me, man, my voice is messed up now. But we were all supposed to meet down there, and then we were going to leave from the ship from that point. And my wife said, I want to call our daughter. We only had 1 child at this time, and just my oldest daughter. And my daughter was staying with my in-laws while we were on this cruise. And my wife said, I want to call our daughter and just talk to her for a little bit before we go out tonight, because she hadn't spoken to her since we'd been on the ship. And of course, I said, of course, okay, go ahead and call her up. Just don't make it too long. We've got to head out here soon. And not to mention, I remember this, like I said, like it was yesterday. It was $16 a minute to call from the ship. And I told my wife, it's $16 a minute, so don't be on the phone for too long. That's just ridiculous. And my wife was like, okay. And this is before, cell phones were really big. You couldn't just take your cell phone anywhere. Maybe you could, I don't know, but I don't remember us using cell phones when we were on this cruise. And my wife said, I'm going to go ahead and call her. And I went and got in the shower and started getting ready while she was on the phone with my daughter. So I, as I'm going to get in the shower, she's already getting on the phone. I went in there, took a shower. I come back out of the shower. She's still on the telephone. Now, granted, I don't take long showers. I was only in there for maybe, 3 or 4 minutes. It wasn't very long. But when I came out, like I said, she's still on. I figured that she would at least been about to get off the phone at this point. But she's still carrying on, talking, And, at one point, I look over at her. I'm like, hey, go ahead and wrap it up. And I want to talk to her really quick as well before you let her go. Don't forget, it's $16 a minute. And my wife's like, okay, I'm going to get off here in just a minute. But she kept talking, and eventually we're at like 15 minutes now, and I said something again. I'm like, okay, it's time to get off the phone. And my wife, she reluctantly got off. She didn't want to, but at this point I think she had been on there for like 20 minutes or something. And when she got off the phone, because I had been pushing her, okay, go ahead, let's get off. And like I said, I wanted to speak to my daughter really quick before we got off the phone with her. And when she finally hung up the phone, she turned around and was really upset with me. And I was like, this is $16 a minute. It's okay. We're going to be able to talk to her again. You spoke to her. She's okay. Let's go ahead and go do what we need to go do. And my wife was not happy with me. She was really upset that I pushed her to get off the phone. And I kept, saying, it's $16 a minute. And she's like, it doesn't matter. I don't care how much it costs. I just want to speak to my daughter. And, me being me and me being, in active addiction, I wasn't very good at handling my emotions. And I've spoken about this, but I still struggle with anger. It's one of the hardest ones for me to handle since I've gotten sober. Now I do my best to just avoid everything that I can. If I start getting upset, I just go for a walk. Or I get in my car and I just leave, because I'm going to do everything in my power to avoid any kind of argument or any kind of negativity or anything like that. I just do my best to avoid it. But that wasn't the case back then. I was very defensive, very egotistical, immature. It was all about me and what I wanted. Very narcissistic. I didn't care about anybody else. And I'm just being completely honest with you guys. I was a very selfish person when I was in active addiction. All that mattered was me. And where's my next drink? If there was any extra cash, well, that's my extra cash because I need it for my alcohol. Whatever we were doing, I had to make sure that my alcohol was involved. There was always, I had to, go drive over here really quick to go buy a 12-pack of beer and some ice, and then I had to go find a cooler, and it was just always me trying to figure out, how am I going to get my alcohol? How am I going to get my alcohol and keep it cold? How am I going to mix my drinks? It was there, anywhere that we went, this was the first thing that I had to work out, because I wanted to get intoxicated, and that's all that mattered. And once again, here we are on this cruise ship. We're about to go party. I'm already intoxicated at this point, as is. And, now my wife's upset with me because I wanted her to get off the phone because it's $16 a minute. Now, like I said, this is all going to come together at the end about the $16 a minute. But there's more to the story. My wife's really upset with me because I forced her to get off the phone. It's not like I grabbed it out of her hand and hung up, but I just kept saying, get off. And me being me, and once again, I was very defensive, and I started to argue with her about it because she was, upset with me. And when my wife used to get upset with me, I'd get upset that she was upset. Because once again, I was immature. I didn't know how to handle my emotions. So I started to argue with her, and we started arguing in the room. My whole point was, it's $16 a minute. The amount of time you're already on the phone was probably $200. Like, she's okay. It's not that big of a deal. We'll be able to talk to her at another date, another point. We'll be able to talk to her when it's cheaper. Maybe we could call from the island or whatever. I'm trying to make a case for the fact that I just wanted to get off the phone because it was $16 a minute. My wife did not care one bit because it was our daughter. She's sitting there like, I just wanted to speak to our daughter. So I promise you I'm getting to the point now. I just want to make sure that you guys understand how all this happened. So we're in our room. We're already starting to argue, but we've got to go ahead and head out. And go down to the part of the ship where they got the stairs so you can exit and get off at the dock. And everybody was supposed to be down there waiting on us. And I'm telling my wife, we got to go ahead and get down there. They're waiting on us right now. President of the company's waiting, vice president, all the area directors. All the big bosses, all the people from the corporate office are down there. And, I'm telling her we need to go. So we leave the room. As we leave the room, we're walking through the hallway, we're arguing. And me being me, I'm getting loud. Now, I wasn't being aggressive or anything like that, and I wasn't screaming. I was just talking loud. And, we're going back and forth as we're walking down the hallway. We get to, I can't remember if we went on a flight of stairs, and we had to go down a few flights of stairs to get down to that area. And as we're walking down these stairs, we're still going at it with each other. And I'm very defensive, like I said, narcissistic, selfish, just going on and on and on about this at this point now. I had already gotten irritated. I'm intoxicated, and when I used to get like that, I wouldn't shut up. And this time was one of those days. I just would not shut up. I kept going and going and going, and I was really starting to upset her. And as I'm antagonizing her, because that's something that I used to do. When somebody used to upset me, I used to try my best to antagonize them to get them angry or upset or whatever emotion they put on me. I would try to do that back to them because I was immature. And I was doing that this time. And we're walking down the steps and going back and forth with each other. And we come around another flight of stairs. It's like these stairs, you go down and then it turns and then it goes down again and then turns and then goes down again. So you can't see as you come around each section of the stairs. You can't see what's down at the next section. And we're coming down those stairs. And like I said, I think we had to go down like 4 or 5 floors to get down to that level where you get off the ship. And as we're coming down the last section, I didn't realize where we're at because I'm not paying attention to what's going on. I'm just going back and forth with her as we're going down the stairs. And like I said, I'm already buzzed up. I'm upset because we're arguing. I'm not paying a bit of attention. And as we're going down the stairs, I'm kind of turned around, walking backwards as I'm talking to her. And we come around this last turn, and we're going at it with each other at this point. We're both kind of screaming at each other, not screaming, but we're both talking very loud with each other back and forth. And, we're arguing. And as we come around that last turn, like I said, I've got my back pointed down the down part of the stairs, and we're just going at it with each other. And all of a sudden, my wife kind of just looks at me. She has this look on her face. And, I'm like, what is it? And I turn around because I could just see the look in her eye like something was really wrong. And I turned around and looked, and the whole entire company was standing behind me. And we had been standing there arguing with each other. They had heard us coming all the way down the stairs the whole entire time. And we stood there and argued with each other, like right around. Like I said, the stairs kind of did like this and then would turn. So it's like a 90-degree turn and the steps go down, then another 90-degree turn and the steps go down. So we were like right at that spot to where they could hear us perfectly fine because we were right at that one little wall. And then the next turn down, they were standing right there, but we didn't see them at that point yet. And we had stopped and continued to argue with each other. And then when we kept coming down the stairs, like I said, all of a sudden my back is to everyone. I'm not looking behind me. And my wife's still going at it with me. And then she just kind of looks up, looks at me, and gives me this look like, you need to shut up, like we're busted. And I'm like, what? What is it? What are you looking at? What's the problem? And I turn around, like I said, and there's the whole entire company standing behind me. All the area directors, the president of the company is literally right behind me, standing there with his wife. Like I said, the whole corporate office, all the managers, they're all standing there. Now, not every single person, but for the most part, they're all there because they were all waiting on everybody to show up so we could all walk off the ship together. And here I am arguing with my wife in front of all of my bosses. They all saw it. It was one of the most embarrassing days of my life. I could not believe that had happened. I couldn't believe it. And I've got a couple of other stories like this that have to do with me drinking and stuff like that as well. Things like this that I did, especially on work trips. I embarrassed myself quite a few times on these types of trips because of my drinking. Had I not been drinking, none of this would have ever happened. But because I was drinking, it led up to these situations. And just like I said, this time, I didn't know how to handle my emotions. I'd been drinking. I was upset, and I would not stop. I just kept going on and on and on and on. And, I argued with my wife in front of the whole entire company. And after all that was said and done, I turned around, and they're all standing there with their jaws just hanging open. And some things were said back and forth. I'm not going to get into it. I wasn't cussing her out or anything, but we were in the middle of an argument. I was just saying some things that weren't very nice, and everybody heard me saying this stuff. And I'll never forget the president of the company walking up to me after that and said, "I want to talk to you later." Man, talk about embarrassing. He pulled me to the side and chewed me out for that one. And told me that better not ever happen again, which, I was very, very embarrassed. And, that was one of those situations where I should have realized what was going on in the moment and told myself, this is due to your drinking, your consumption. You need to get a grip on this because it's really starting to cause problems in your life. And during this period of time, that was 2007, 2008, so I'm somewhere around 27, 28 years old, around that age. Got a really good job. I was a general manager of a restaurant, making really good money. They're taking us on trips and all these types of things, and I was willing to throw it all away in the trash can because of my consumption. I should have lost my job because of that, because of what happened on that cruise ship. They should have just fired me. But they didn't. They kept me around, and I continued to embarrass myself over the years doing more stuff like that. Now, that was the only time I ever got in trouble for arguing or anything like that, but, I did get into some other situations, which are stories for another day, and I'd be more than happy to tell you guys at a later date. But, like I said, my addiction, my drinking led to that embarrassing situation. And not only did I embarrass myself, but I embarrassed my wife, and I embarrassed her bad. And all she wanted to do was just talk with my daughter. That's all she wanted to do. But me being me, I wanted to be cheap. Here I am arguing with her because it's $16 a minute. And I told you guys that during this cruise that our drinks were included. I think there were just maybe a couple of beers that we got every day. We got these little tickets or something. But if you wanted liquor drinks and stuff like that, you had to pay for them. So, day one of getting on the cruise ship, I already had started my tab. In the morning that we went to leave, the morning we're pulling into the port to go home, they slid a little paper receipt up underneath of the door, and it was $1,000 that I had drank in alcohol. $1,000 in 1 week of drinking. $1,000. And here I am arguing with my wife over a $16 a minute phone call. But I drank $1,000 worth of liquor while we were on that cruise ship. It's just crazy to think about that, I was willing to ruin our trip by arguing with her over $16 a minute. But I drank $1,000 worth of alcohol on that trip as well. And, I never said anything about that. There never was a conversation, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to give you a hard time about that $16 a minute. Meanwhile, while I'm drinking $1,000 worth of liquor in 1 week. And like I said, we also had, free tickets to drink. It wasn't much, but like I said, I think it was like 6 beers a day. And I snuck liquor onto the ship. So I had my own liquor while we were on the ship. We also got to drink beer while we were on the ship. and I drank $1,000 worth of wine, and basically ruined our trip while we were on it, because my wife was not happy with me the rest of that trip. She just wasn't. I embarrassed her in front of the whole entire company. You know, when we both looked up, because she didn't see him right away either. It wasn't until she looked up and then looked at me and was like, oh my gosh, because we were in the middle of arguing with each other. We just weren't paying any attention. I had my back turned to him, and she was looking at me. She wasn't looking down there, and all she saw was, you know, there were just a bunch of people right there. She wasn't paying any attention to who it was. You know, we had just walked around the corner, and there's just a bunch of people trying to get off the ship. We didn't realize it was all of the people from my company that were standing there. And it was one of the most embarrassing things that's ever happened to me before. I'll just never forget the way that I felt. My face turned beet red. And, you know, I'm one of those people that I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I mean, you can look at me and tell. If I'm angry, if I'm upset about something, if I'm happy, whatever it is, you can just look at me. It's very easy to pick up on what's going on with me and how I'm doing that day. And it was one of those things, you know, like, I looked like that the rest of the trip. You know, it wasn't a good trip the rest of the time. It was very, very embarrassing. I think I might have actually told this story on here before, now that I think about it, because I know I did tell a story about, or maybe I haven't, because I did tell a story about that same cruise. We were out kayaking in the ocean, and this guy he wanted me to take a picture of him and his wife. They were on another kayak, and he was like, hey, do you mind taking a picture of me and my wife? And we're out like in the middle of the ocean too, and this guy just paddles up to me and asked me to take a picture, and I was like, okay. Well, I was drunk while we were out there, and next thing you know, he goes to hand me the camera, and I dropped it, and it sank all the way to the bottom of the ocean. Gone. I lost this guy's expensive underwater camera. And this was back, like I said, back in the early 2000s. It's not like, you know, like now, you know, you can just get on Amazon and buy a waterproof camera for $20. They're on there all day long. You know, back then, if you had a nice, like, GoPro waterproof camera or something, that was like $300-$400 all day long. And I dropped that guy's camera, and it looked like, you know, it was 5 feet down. But it's not. It was like 50 feet deep. When you're in crystal clear water like that, I'm sure you guys know, it's like a magnifying glass. You look down there, it doesn't look like it's that far. But you start trying to swim down there, and you quickly realize this is an optical illusion. It is way further than just a couple of feet. But anyway, I just wanted to tell that story today because, you know, once again, it's one of those things. We don't have to worry about these types of things after we get sober. You know, we can go on a cruise like that and have a great time. I'm not saying that after we get sober that we don't have arguments, or that we don't have moments that, you know, we did or said something that we wish we hadn't, because sometimes, you know, when you know, our emotions are high and, you know, we're really upset about something, you know, even when we're sober, we still might say or do something that we regret later. But the chances of that happening when we're in active addiction are so much higher. And had I been sober that day, none of that would have happened. You know, first of all, we wouldn't even had an argument about my wife being on the phone with my daughter. It just would have been, everything would have been fine. I wouldn't have said a word. You know, if she had been on there for an hour, I might have said, okay, it's time to really get off the phone. But I wouldn't have said anything. You know, it wouldn't even been that big of a deal. I wouldn't have been worried about the fact that we needed to conserve our money for alcohol, because that's all I cared about during that period of time. We just didn't have a whole lot of money back then. You know, we were much younger. You know, we had just purchased a new home. We both had newer vehicles during that period of time. So, you know, we've got these big car payments, a mortgage. You know, we just weren't making a lot of money. My wife worked part-time. I was the only one that was working, you know, full-time like that. I wanted my wife to be able to work part-time, to pick my daughter up from school every day, and to be able to take her back and forth to dance. My daughter was in dance from the time that she was, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years old. I mean, it's from the time that she could walk, she was enrolled in dance classes. And, she did that all the way up until when she graduated from high school and was competing all over the place. My wife used to take her, like every other weekend, they would leave to go on trips for their dance competitions. I forget why I was even talking about that. But anyway, my point is that, if I had been sober, it wouldn't have been a big deal. It really wouldn't have been. Now I remember, is that the reason I was bringing all that up is because we just didn't have a lot of money. My daughter, like I said, was enrolled in dance. They were going on trips all the time. That we had to pay for their lodging, and then we had to pay for the competition and the outfits. All that stuff is expensive. Now, we did have, like, my mother-in-law would help us out getting that kind of stuff, which was a huge help, but we just did not have much money. And, here we are on this trip, and my wife's on the phone, $16 a minute. I'm sitting there thinking each one of those minutes is a couple of cocktails that I could be drinking. And like I said, that's all I cared about. It wasn't important to me that my wife just wanted to be comforted and wanted to talk to my daughter. She wanted to make that connection with her that day. She missed her. This is her daughter. She was inside of her. That's something I will never understand how that feels. I will never understand that connection that mothers have with their children, because I've never had something growing inside of me. It's just something I'll never be able to understand. That day, like I said, she wanted to talk to her daughter, and I made a big deal about it. And we ended up getting into a big fight, and it ended up turning out bad. And it was all because of my addiction. And like I said, once we get sober, these are things that we don't have to worry about anymore. So many things in our life just clean up, and we just don't have to worry about that much anymore. We really don't. We don't argue that much when we get sober. I don't know about you guys, but since I've gotten sober, I've gotten so much quieter. I just don't talk that much anymore. Now, when I get on here on camera, I'm sure you guys are sitting there thinking to yourself, like, yeah, you're full of it. Because when you get on camera, you don't shut up. But, in my day-to-day life, I just don't talk that much. I don't have that much to say. I just stay kind of quiet. It's only when I'm in active addiction, I'm drinking, I'm buzzed up, and I'm feeling good that I don't stop talking, because I'm feeling good. I just want to sit there and just keep rambling on and rambling on. But anyway, once again, I just wanted to tell that story today. And like I said, talk about it, because it's one of those things that after we get sober, we don't have to worry about that kind of stuff much anymore. I'm not saying that we're not going to argue at all once we get sober, because that's baloney. But it'll be less frequent. It won't be as often, because our emotions aren't all over the place anymore. We're not going through withdrawal anymore. And I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. When you're going through withdrawal, you get super cranky. Or if you've been day drinking all day, and because that's what had happened that day. I had been day drinking all day long. I had started first thing that morning. I was already cranky. I really didn't want to go hang out with all these people that night. I really just wanted to go lay down and take a nap and go to sleep, because I had been drinking all day long. So I was cranky because of that. And then I took it out on my wife because she just wanted to speak with my daughter. And then I ruined the rest of the trip because I lost my cool and argued with her in front of everybody in my company and embarrassed myself and her. And it's one of those things I'll never forget. I will never forget that day as long as I live. But once again, now that I've gotten sober, I know something like that will never ever happen again. It just won't. I'm aware of my surroundings. I pay attention to what's going on. When I was drinking, I didn't care. I would say and do things. We could be right in the middle of Walmart, and the things I would say and do, were just embarrassing, because I wasn't considerate. And, once again, all I thought about was myself, and that's not the case anymore. So, guys, I'm going to go ahead and hop off of here for today. I've already been talking enough. That story went on for long enough for today. So anyway, I need to get off of here anyway so I can get on there and start replying to everybody's comments, because like I said, I'm not going to leave one comment unreplied to. So I've got a lot of work to get done, and I don't know what time it is right now, but it's got to be getting close to 7 o'clock. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to that story today. Although it's not a like warm feeling story or anything, you know, it's embarrassing, and something that I wish hadn't happened, but I felt like I wanted to tell it today. Just for some reason, that story popped up in my mind. So anyway, with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and get off. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. Until tomorrow, I will see you all then. I love you guys so much. Bye-bye. Figure I'd give you guys a little update on the little baby birds. Can't tell if that's the mom or another one. It must be one of the babies that's kind of climbed up on the nest right there. They're getting bigger. Just a couple days ago, they were just little teeny tiny little babies. They're already starting to get feathers on them and everything. Wow, that's so cool.